I had a business that I built up to nearly 9 figures, big issues to overcome, and I wanted to prove that I could do something and be a contributing member of society and my family and provider. I had a business partner take a lot of money from me that I just gave complete deference to.
Welcome back to Movified. I'm your host, Mark Hirschi, owner of Salmon's Moving and Storage, located in beautiful Vancouver, British Columbia. And this is Movified Mondays. I have a fantastic guest today. He is the founder and CEO of Propel Small Business Solutions out of St. George, Utah. It is Justin Lund himself. Welcome, Justin.
Hey, Mark, how are you?
Good. I'm glad that we both made sure our heads are nice and shiny. So if it's really bright when you're watching this, just turn down that tint on your computer, your laptop, or your phone, and it'll be so much better for you.
You get your green blockers there. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, get those shades on. You've built a company focused on streamlining admin tasks, like business formation, compliance for entrepreneurs. What made you want to get involved in starting a business like this?
Okay, before I jump into that question, good question, is I just got to say, like, honestly, not a lot of people can make this look good. So we can pull it off. So
we can pull it off.
You know what I'm saying? Sure. Okay. So why get into admin is kind of an interesting backstory, because it's not, most people don't start a business because they love doing taxes and books and spreadsheets. You know, typically the entrepreneurs are visionary and they like to build things and do these solutions. And that was me too. I am not, you're not going to find me poking around spreadsheets in my free time, but I had a business that I built up to nearly 9 figures, after some previous personal challenges and chapters of my life that was really big issues to overcome. And I wanted to prove that I could do something and be a contributing member of society and my family and provider. And, the short abbreviated version, which we can unpack a little if you'd like, is I had a business partner take a lot of money from me that I just gave complete deference to all the finances, all the admin stuff. And I just stayed in my little sweet spot lane. I was like, sure, he's going to take care of all of that. And that's great. Over the course of 5 years, 200 and something entities, I think, that we saw in legal discovery, because I had to get into nasty litigation at the end of this, but probably north of $20 million that was just wiped off the books and siphoned out, not to mention a huge tax liability that I had to figure out how to claw myself out of.
Where do you go wrong? Like, because you see this all the time, you hear about it in the news, and it happens. And for those that are like listening or watching that have business partners and more people involved within the company, or you've opened up, you've loosened the shield or the collar to say, hey, now you have access into this banking information. Here's an expense card. Your salespeople go, oh, I need to get a credit card for this. And you're not, you as the CEO or the owner, you're too inundated and busy to, be checking the accounts. But when you're getting that far, like, where do you go wrong? Like, where's that fuck up that's happening where you're like, so 20 million is not in our bank account anymore and we have a problem.
Yeah. And it didn't just happen like it wasn't one transaction in one fell swoop. But yeah, that's a great question, Mark. I think overall, I would answer that question by saying my strategy as it pertains to the admin and financial side of the yucky stuff, the shitty part of business that isn't fun. My approach was head in the sand. Like, I just, I got to a certain point and I was managing it on my own. So initially when I started, I was a one-man operation. I did it all. I did books on Sundays, which I had no business being in the books. I'm not good at doing the books. I was so slow and it was so agonizing for me to try to send an invoice or reconciling. That was the worst. I'd be off 13 cents and just want to murder people. For 3 hours, I'm looking for 13 cents because my fat fingers typed, just hit a wrong key. So those kind of things make me bananas. I don't have the patience for it. But that's what I was doing for the first probably 2.5 years. But then when I had a level of success that started to grow, I had clients that I thought I was going to tell them, I'm going to tone down the hours a little bit and I'm just going to coast into this kind of a level. And they all said, then you're fired. We're going to find somebody else. And I was like, well, hang on, just kidding. I'll figure it out. Just just pretend that never happened. And that's how I let people into my world. That was the why. And then the how was just the head in the sand, the head in the sand approach. When I listened to that sales pitch, they saw me as a mark, and I was a beautiful mark because I'm generating cash flow. I'm just in the beginning of this hockey stick sort of uptick. And I'm like, I'm really good at this and this and this. And I'm really bad with numbers. And I'm really bad with taxes. And they scare the shit out of me. And he's like, don't you worry. Come over here. I'm a CPA. I'm a lawyer. I'm a this. I'm a that. I got all these credentials, all these things that I can help you with. And I was just like, oh, this is a godsend. This is great. And it could have been, if I would have had a little bit more. This is what I tell my clients now that I do coaching with. Like, you don't have to be a CPA just to look at your numbers. You don't need a master's degree in accounting to start looking at finances, to start building a plan. Just like you built your business. It was one brick on top of another, on top of another. So usually the first week or 2 or 3 in our coaching, I tell people, set a meeting with your CPA quarterly. And almost all of them say, well, what am I going to, I don't have anything to talk about. I don't even know, what would I say? Half of them don't even have a CPA, if there's a certain size. I'm like, so I can help them figure out how to get one. But having that meeting on the books just gives context, because most entrepreneurs, because they don't like it, they don't do anything about these numbers or taxes until it's March. And there's this forcing function in the US, the deadline to file for entities is March 15th. And the tax return for personal is April 15th, typically. So about March 2nd or 3rd or 4th is when they start thinking, oh shit, I got to call an accountant. I got to call a CPA, which is the worst time on earth to call an accountant in the US, because they are now trying to get 7,000 tax returns done over the next 9 days. And you want to call and talk about how to increase your tax deductibility. They're like, yeah, sure. There's nothing I can do for you now. So they take your money, they do the return, and you don't think you're getting this great value. So that's just common. But if you call your accountant in November, you're going to find that's a whole different person you talk to, because they ain't got shit to do in November. They've passed the extension deadlines. All these things have passed, and they're just getting ready to look like they're looking at Thanksgiving ahead, and they're thinking, hey, the holidays are coming up. And that's what I would recommend. Is you find these times and you hit 4 times a year, you talk to your accountant, and all you have to do is talk. And I have a kind of a fun story how that really, I do this now. Coming from where I came from and having all this money embezzled from me, I call my accountant every quarter. We have a standing meeting. And one of them in November, I was telling him just a story how there was an early snow and it was just a skiff. It wasn't dusting and hardly anything. And we hadn't changed the snow tires over on the SUV yet because it was a lease, and we're turning it in just a couple weeks. Well, my wife was driving, and then she was going out to do some things in the morning, just lost control, hit a mailbox, and did damage to the front, the side, the back. So $18,000 of damage just a couple weeks before. I'm just telling him, I'm like, Paul, can you believe that shit? I mean, just a couple weeks, and we're just going to. And he's like, wait a minute. Is that the vehicle that this company leases? I'm like, yeah, that's the one. And see, he's looking at it through a totally different lens. I'm just bitching about what happened. And he's like, wait a minute. So you're going to turn that in. Can you get another vehicle before the end of the year? I said, I wasn't planning it, but whatever. He's like, get one. So I end up buying a truck, and he tells me that the reason I need to do it before the end of the year, because the accelerated depreciation on the US tax code is going to expire and reduce that by January 1st. Long story short, I get a $57,000 tax deduction because I buy a brand new truck because my wife hit the damn mailbox, and I was having a conversation with my CPA about it. So not only was that a $57,000 reduction in taxable income, it made the bucket of money underneath that a lower tax bracketed tax now. So Mark, tens of thousands of dollars saved because I'm bullshitting with my accountant.
Before we ever started using a moving CRM, someone asked me, could you 10x what you're doing right now with the current systems and processes you have in place? And I said no. And so he was like, well, then you need to just pull the trigger on the software. And then I saw Smart Moving, and it was game over.
Austin joined thousands of moving owners on Smart Moving in 2021. Since then, he's more than doubled his business.
And I always compare smart moving to Apple products. It's just so simple, so easy to use, and that's really what's allowed my team to scale and now have 2 branches. And last year we scaled Central Coast Moving over 50% growth.
If you're ready to turn your moving company into a machine that drives profit, not chaos, try Smart Moving.
I set up a meeting every quarter with my accountant because I want to kind of always think, what creative ways can I save? And what I never thought of is, I mean, I'm typically a talker anyway. So when I get to my accountant, I'm always like, "Dit, dit, 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 dit," like there's this going on and that going on and everything else. And it's always interesting because this is why, people always joke, this is why I go see a therapist, because you almost kind of get a different perspective by telling it to someone else and hearing their take on it and sharing that. And that's always so important, especially as business leaders, to make sure that happens. Another fact that I always found, if you don't have a CPA, is look for a local accounting firm that has either a fractional CFO or someone of that type of caliber within that organization, so that they can at least assess you. You might pay a little bit of a larger, first intake to get things all mapped out, but then you can have things properly set up within your firm so that you are watching your numbers, because we talk about it on the show a lot. It's the biggest scary factor that happens in businesses is you're not paying attention to your numbers. In the moving industry, it usually happens with labor, office staff that are, putting in for 8 hours. They really can actually get this done in 5 hours. You're not utilizing virtual assistants enough, maybe to like sub out some of that mundane task. And there's a huge savings on there. We also look at packing supplies, how much packing supplies are going out on a truck, and then they're not coming back. So 100 boxes go out. The customer is supposed to get 100, but then maybe only purchases 10. And then where's the other 90 boxes? And then, those 90 boxes are on a truck, but then they got to use for here and there. And the next thing you know, oh yeah, and by the way, we just gave the customer 20 for free, and we totally forgot to pick up the rest.
Let me ask you that, Mark. Like when somebody starts a moving company, what compels them to do so? And then I want to come back to the question you asked me.
Who knows? Who knows?
I'm just saying, there's plumbers, there's people that are bakers that bake cookies. Like when somebody starts a moving company, what are they good at? What are their natural, what's their experience that leads them up to that point? Typically, would you say?
I found typically the biggest reason is it was my dad was working for a moving company, and then I started helping him. And then the next thing you know, I kind of work for this moving company and go, oh, wow, this, I could do this on my own. Or I go to, my dad saying, oh, great, he's an owner operator, and let's start our own moving company and we can do this and build off those accounts. Hey, I'm in college. I'm looking for a part-time job to help me through the summer. I'm working for this moving company. It seems to be kind of falling to shit. I could totally do this way better. Grab some of my other buddies from college. Hey, let's start this and let's get going. But the biggest thing, and we've been talking about it more recently, is this whole silver tsunami. And I've mentioned it on the show before, which it is those trades businesses that were, the baby boomers that don't have the exit strategy in place. They are not, staying up to date with their CRMs. Everything is still pen and paper. They have been stagnant at growth because they're not keeping up with the times for Google, for online presence. They used to just be hey, we advertise in the yellow pages, or it's that, that for word of mouth, door knocking, which, don't get me wrong, is great when you have a legacy company that is well known and established in the community, but it's dying out because you got these new breeders that are coming in with, wrapped vehicles. The marketing is on point. Their advertising and their hustle is 20x what those companies are now. So you can actually acquire those companies for a hell of a lot cheaper And typically, even based on like any kind of acquisition, almost on a vendor take back, because they've already probably paid off their houses. They just want some retirement money. They probably don't have much savings, and they want, let's say 50 or 100 or even like $500,000 for their business. You could put such a small deposit down and set up a payment structure with them where they almost finance you, but it's almost in their best interest to still be there. So after that 90-day or 60-day where, they're peace out, see you later, good luck with the company, they're actually there probably for that 3 or 5 year term that you've set up with them, because they want to know what's going on. They want to see the financials. They want to see that growth and see how well you're doing. And you always have them in your back pocket when you have questions. So there's so many different ways to skin a cat of why get into the moving industry. I mean, mine came from background in marketing, got hired on from a moving company, started working on one, started working on a couple. They said, "Oh, you're a big guy. You still have hair. Come work for us." And I started kind of doing that and seeing the issues and problems and kind of going like, "Hey, listen, I'm either going to start my own or I'm going to buy you out." Right. And a lot of those times happen as well, too, where you work within the company, you work your way up and you end up having this opportunity to buy shares. You end up being able to set something up where you can purchase the company from the owner because he wants to retire out, and you've worked, you've done every single position you can for like the last 20 years. So yeah, I mean, the one thing I always used to tell people is in the moving industry, and comment if you think that I'm wrong, but when there's a recession, people are downsizing. When there is growth in the economy, people are upsizing and they're moving. So someone is always moving. Offices are always moving. Leases are up. There's always this continuation where people need movers. Until Elon Musk comes out with robot movers, you will always have a job. There are way too many other positions out there right now that are becoming obsolete, but moving and that type of transportation where it's a hands-on customer service style, very technical. At Salmons, we move $500,000 pianos. We are hoisting items. We're craning items. Like there's a certain finesse and there's a certain white glove treatment when you're diversified within your organization that needs to be done that robots can't do.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's kind of what I'm getting
was
at.
that a big long-winded answer?
But the gist and thrust of that answer is that there's some history that comes into it. Logistically how to handle it. You can put together the cranes and the hoists and the different pieces. You know how to pack a truck. You know how to manage relationships. Very few times it's because you know how to manage personnel and human resources and build a team. Very few of the times it's because you're really good at finances, numbers, spreadsheets, and QuickBooks. You know what I'm saying? And that's where people reach what like this capacity ceiling. And it's kind of like this thermostat of what's comfortable, right? You hit a floor where it's like, okay, it's too cold. Things are too bad. I'm going to work hard and climb up. You climb up and you hit this point where things get a little too hard and complex. And then you kind of naturally start the sabotage of coming down sometimes. And that's because nobody really tells you that when you start a business, and once you reach certain points, and you can often tie this to revenue, there's different industries, they have different revenue trends, but I see it from 300 to 3 million is the most common blocks for these complexity ceilings, because they're bringing people in to grow. They don't know how to bring those people in. So as entrepreneurs, we look at things like we put lipstick on pigs, right? We can solve problems. We can make things look good. So we get all this stress and complexity. It's like, oh, we need an operations manager. We hire a COO, and we don't know what the hell we're doing when it comes time to manage a person of that stature, that caliber, because we've never even had a damn executive assistant to delegate things to. So we jump ahead, we hire out of place, we bring in that. All that does is take money off the balance sheet, so now you just have less money. You paid all this payroll, that person leaves or you let them go, and now you're back to where you were before. So again, back down, but now you have less money, so you start working again. You go from sales to fulfillment, and then you're just kind of running around all these different directions and wondering why you ended up where you started, because you're going this way for an hour, then you're going that way for an hour, and that way for an hour, and you end up right where you started.
And you also end up burning yourself out, and you're always constant, and you're in this constant like hamster wheel cycle without any growth. You're wondering why you're not making any money. You're wondering why your family's pissed off at you because, you're doing these 12, 14-hour days, and you feel like you've walked away. All you've done is like sharpen a pencil because you don't know which direction to go. And it's true. It's it's funny when you actually reflect on it. It should be, okay, I'm looking for like an operations or someone to kind of take a load off this plate. I should probably hire myself a executive assistant first so that I understand how to actually delegate
Yeah.
the
And let go.
tasks and let go, so that you're not, big brothering that employee and micromanaging them to a point where they feel their job is, not like they're not achieving anything. And they usually end up getting frustrated and walking away because they're just being micromanaged.
Being found on the second page of Google is literally like having a billboard in the middle of the desert. Your mama ain't gonna see it. No one's gonna see it. You're on the second page of Google, no one's gonna call, no one's gonna book. Here is the deal. If your business is not ranking on the top of Google, that means your competitors are going to be stealing your customers every single day. So at Rotate Digital, we don't play any guessing games. We use data-driven SEO strategies to make sure Google finds you first, so that these Google searches turn into your customers, not your competitors' customers. How do we do it? We do it through AI-driven keyword optimization, exclusive blog networks, backlinking strategies, and honestly, the secret stuff, the proprietary lead attribution software. So what do you get as a result? You get not only good marketing, but now you get clarity into what is bringing you more revenue. So if that's something you want to do, you want to make sure your leads find you and not your competition, go ahead and go to rotatedigital.com, schedule a call, and we'll help you take your business to the top of Google.
Are you a mover looking to make an impact? Discover Moving Letters AI and join the ML Plus Club today. Elevate your customer engagement with the personal touch of handwritten letters.
If you want to take your company to that next level, it's the only way to subscribe. If you're doing anything but Moving Letters AI, you need to get on it. So it's going to take your business to that next level. You're going to see an increase in that revenue. Let's go.
I highly recommend using this company. They're amazing to work with. They even send you an email on how much work they're producing for you.
Don't miss out. Join the revolution and start making moves that matter.
Put a golden damn ticket in there with Moving Letters AI.
That's exactly it. So back to how I got into this. After that, a series of poor choices that led to this embezzlement that I had to kind of fight my way through and out of, that required me to bring on a whole staff of professional people in my corner that I had to deal with to fight through 4.5 years of litigation. I mean, my days were, I actually learned how to meditate and things because I was going to lose my mind. That much money, all gone. Everything that I worked for, gone. Like, I had to figure out I had to go inside and get peace with that somehow. But then, so I'd start my day in that process, in that headspace, and then I would spend the next 6, 7, 8 hours every single day for 4.5 years reading a stack of deposition paperwork from the day before, this big, or going through emails or bank statements from the last 5 years and just trying to track these little things here, the things that were said, putting all the context in. In the middle of that process, a friend of mine called and said, "Hey, don't you have people that do like payroll and tax shit for you now?" I was like, "Well, I guess you could say that." And she was starting a new business and hiring a couple employees, and she asked if my guys could help her with that stuff. I said, "I guess, no big deal." So we just did that for them, charged them what our time was, and she was just pumped. She's like, "I didn't have to think twice about that." She told 5 of her friends. Within a year, we had 50 clients because they told friends. We didn't have a website. We didn't have we did nothing. And after 4 or 5 of them just doing them as favors, we're like, well, let's add a little profit margin to it. Let's do a little bit, let's time plus, let's do a little more. And then we just started to productize it a little bit more because we're realizing that there's all these people that are the visionaries, the builders, the people like me, people like you that have an idea, that have experience, that have expertise and some drive to get out there and make shit work. But when it comes time to file compliance reports and 941 federal tax returns and quarterly withholding statements, and it's like, that just sucks the wind right out of your sails. So we decided to kind of embrace it and just take the bullshit off of entrepreneurs' plates so they could focus on what they do and what lights them up.
I love that. Would you, like, now working with so many companies, and helping them manage that side of the business. What's one revenue enhancing strategy that for like moving businesses that are struggling with like that seasonal cash flow that typically happens, or invoicing delays, uh, that they could turn like those headaches into actual profit drivers?
So I would say it depends on the revenue, on the size of this company. But if you have like a general answer for that would, in my opinion,
Give
would
me a
be,
typical like like a $1 million company and like a $5 million company.
so I would say in the 1 million side, it's delegate some of the administrative stuff to get that off your plate, because the founder is the one, the founder, the owner operator, the management team, you know, those leadership roles, they're the ones that are going to be able to solve those problems. But what typically happens at about that level is people get so mired in the admin stuff, they're spending 2 or 3 hours in emails and calendar shit instead of actually solving what is most important to the business right now. So if you had 5 years into this business and you're at that level, you're definitely, I guarantee you are definitely doing that. So you start just kind of measuring where your time is going, do an audit, figure out what do you do all day long? How many of those hours are taking phone calls? And I've even told people to change their cell phone number. Like, just start over. Only give it to half the people, because you're addicted to that shit sometimes. You know, the dopamine cycle of, I got to be the hero that answers the questions, because that's a lot easier to answer questions that everybody comes to you for than it is to sit down and say, how am I going to solve this revenue problem? Like, that's real. That's hard. You know, so if you free that time up and then you start to deploy that time back into the things that matter most, and Dan says this, you know, that you spend your first 2 hours of the day on the most important problem. Before the emails, before the phone calls, leave your phone on do not disturb, turn it off, just focus in on that. And that's something that I do now a little different maybe than some coaches is I don't necessarily have the problems. I just try to help you add the answers to your problems. I get some of those problems out of your way so that you're not in your own path, your own problem, you know, so that you can unlock some of that creativity. Because again, entrepreneurs are like MacGyver from the 80s. You know, you piece of duct tape, a stick of gum, a toothpick, and a paper clip, and we could solve anything. But when you get these habits and these patterns of just, I got to be busy, I got to do this, I got to respond to these emails, you jump up. How many do you think jump into their emails the first thing they do? They wake up, they brush their teeth, they get ready, they open their email, and it's like, oh, gosh, damn it. And now they're into it. You know?
Oh, for sure. Whether it's texts or emails, of course. Yeah.
So it's the tail wagging the dog instead of the other way around. And you are, an example that Dan used is, it's like having your front door of your office right in the middle of Times Square, Manhattan. You know, like, you're just gonna let anybody come in and take your time, because that's what you're doing. You're not controlling what comes in your inbox like that if that's the way you respond to it.
So how do you recommend fixing that? Because there's probably tons of people that are listening that have that issue all the time. They wake up, boom, they grab their phone. It's usually right beside their bed. They're like, great. Like, I'm ready. I'm stuck. And then, you know, there's usually some fire to put out or emails to get done, and they've lost that focus. So you talked about just, you know, focusing on some of the important parts of your day, putting your phone on do not disturb to have this in there. But, you know, from your actual, from your business standpoint and how you coach, what is some of the recommendations for, you know, someone in that situation as like a first step? Like, would that be the first step? Like, is there like a way to manage that? Because is there, like, do you build out tasks? Like, are you looking for something of what to, because sometimes you think, okay, but my most important things I got to take care of are in my emails.
Yeah.
Right.
And then that starts that cycle and you're screwed. So yes, that's a great question, Mark. I have a playbook called the Founder Freedom Playbook that if anybody listening here wants it, you can have it. Just come over to Instagram and follow me and message me Mark Free, and I'll send you the Freedom Playbook. And the way that breaks down approaching this is to measure the time and where your day goes, and then to implement a few rhythms and stacking items, because you'll start seeing that 3 or 4 or 5 times a day you'll jump into your emails, or 3 or 4 or 5 times a day you get calls from customers, and that's the bottleneck or the fire to put out. And so the first step is to see where it is. The second step is you start to stick these things together. For instance, I have admin blocks in my week on Monday and Friday, so that when my team comes to me like, hey, I got to ask you about this invoice, I got to do this, at a little level, it's no big deal. But when you start getting bigger and bigger and more entities, those invoices, like we just have rhythms and standards now. Like put that on the agenda. You know that I address it on Monday evening and Friday afternoon. Like that's it. I don't look at that until I get into those times. Now, when I get into those times, my assistant builds my agenda for me so that anything coming through my inbox that qualifies as administrative stuff goes onto that agenda. So when I sit down for admin block, it's usually 1 hour to 90 minutes. I get through 25 things. I get done and it's like, I'm out, you know?
Right. Yeah. Done.
So, but it feels good because I know I'm not going to mess with that shit again until the end of the week. And I got a whole bunch of things done in that block of time. It was focused. I turned my phone on Do Not Disturb while I'm going through the list until I get to the item that says call Paul about the tax return issue. And then I call him and then I turn right back to Do Not Disturb. And I just get through that. So there's a few little simple things that are not rocket science. You're going to read and be like, well, duh. But if you can execute on them, you'll see 5 hours back in your week. And Mark, if you get 5 hours in your week to now deploy back in a productive way, you go back to this cash flow problem you mentioned, you're going to unlock something, right? And that's even part of it. So part of that is also just looking at the repetitive tasks. What are the things that are being done that you do again and again and again? And then like record that stuff, create it. ChatGPT 5, what's it called? 5.0, 5 something just came out today.
Yeah, it just came out. Supposed to be the thing.
A thing there, right?
The thing.
With that,
forget ChatGPT 4.0. So.
I know. And we got 5.0. It's just we're cruising. You take a video of you doing certain things, whatever that is. Here's a stupid example. Okay. I recently was wanting to get in shape. You know, I've been on this kind of a journey for a while that I wanted to get in shape, lose some weight, tighten, really get firm and toned and, you know, get some body weight down. So I set some goals. And I got to the point where I needed, like, I'm measuring these macros and I'm trying to figure out to hit these certain targets. For a few days, I did meal prep at night and I'm standing there and my back started to hurt as I'm bent over the counter, cutting and measuring things and weighing everything I'm going to eat the next day. And I'm like, I fucking hate this. I absolutely hate, I don't mind eating the food. That's all fine. It's the prep. After I did that for like 3 nights and it's literally, like my back I can feel it right now. Just talking about it a little. I would just, I'd go like this.
That PTSD is kicking in.
Yes. And so I'm like, what am I doing? So I grabbed my phone. I stuck it on a tripod and then I started over. I actually dumped all the shit out. And then I started from the beginning of that meal. And I'm like, I just talked it out loud. I'm like, so this is what I'm doing. I'm going to do this. And I go over to MyFitnessPal and I enter this in here and I do that. I did that for the next 3 meals. I took those videos, I put them into ChatGPT, whatever it was back then, even a lesser powerful version. And I said, give me a transcription of this and then turn it into an SOP. I looked at that. I spent about 15 minutes on it afterwards, just kind of tightening it up. And then I said, ChatGPT, give me a checklist so somebody can just go through and check, hit all the boxes. I need this many grams of protein, this many snacks. You know, I have meat snacks in the day for a high protein, low calorie thing in the middle of a meal. All done. I came to work the next day and I said, hey, why don't you guys put out an ad on Facebook and just see if there's any college kids or anything that needs like, you know, $15 an hour. They come over to my house a couple days of the week and do this. Done. So for a few bucks, I have somebody now come over. What was cool when they started coming over, I'm like, oh, could you mop the floor while you're here this time too? And they're like, yeah, sure. So now I'm getting the meals done. Like, I carry a Yeti with me everywhere. That's got all my meals for the day. All food is in there. I don't think about it. I can go onto MyFitnessPal on my phone and tell you all the calories, all the macros. It's all there. And there's been a few little tweaks here and there, but no longer does my back hurt. No longer do I stand over the counter. It's fucking awesome. And I get the result. I get to benefit from. So I eat all this food and it's all whole, clean food. And I watch my body fat go down and my stress go down. I love it.
What's up, guys? It's Austin Yarbrough with the Moving Army. If you're listening to this podcast, I'm sure you're crushing it, you're growing your business, and you don't need any help. Majority of you probably don't. But the thing is that information alone isn't enough. If you're looking for someone to hold you accountable, work with you, and collaborate with others in our industry with teams that are killing it, crushing it, you need to join the Moving Army.
This is my invitation to you. You can text my personal cell, 805-441-6118. I'll see you soon and wait for your call. Join the moving army today.
If you're considering Snowball, just do it.
Snowball creates done-for-you referral programs for moving companies so you can turn happy customers into new revenue without lifting a finger. And the results speak for themselves.
In less than a year, we've collected over 2,000 referrals.
We generated over $200,000 of revenue that cost about $5,000 to do it.
I believe we have 4 or 5 the very first day.
The companies winning with Snowball are the ones that already care about their customers. We just help turn that into new business through human outreach and customer nurturing.
Snowball is part of the arsenal of tools that I recommend to my clients because it works.
That's genius. That's so good. And it's a great example for a lot of the stuff that we do all the time. Right. And, you know, we bring up Dan, shout out to Dan Martell, but, you know, his big thing is that if you're doing it twice, write it down.
Yeah.
Right. And there should be like an SOP on there. Now, I know companies that have hundreds and hundreds of SOPs, and you just have it's like a Rolodex of all these different instructions to do it. And, you know, what I highly recommend is to try and take some of those strong highlights that are now being repeated, not just the twice, but, you know, daily on the hour, and then building playbooks that are condensing some of those SOPs into a short form. Here, boom, here's a playbook on this. Here's a playbook on that. Instead of just, you know, someone trying to scan through hundreds and hundreds of different SOPs within your organization. But saying that, for those that are listening, those that are watching, Justin, you know, you offer coaching program, you have your business to help with these types of solutions. How can someone benefit from utilizing your services, and what can they get in that actual product?
It depends on the needs. You know, we go all the way from full service, done for you sort of account. I mean, we have clients that we do their full accounting package. We do the payroll, we do the bookkeeping, we do their invoicing, accounts payable, accounts receivable. So we are their outside accounting team. And we have clients that just come in once a week for a coaching call to help build the systems and the processes. You know, my personal part of that is I do the coaching, and then we have a team that deals with all the admin. Like I said, you're not going to find me poking around spreadsheets just for the fun of it. That's not my lane. But we have people that do it, that they will. They love, you ask them to do anything, they're like, all right, let me make a spreadsheet. It's like, wow, okay. I'm glad somebody loves that, because I sure as hell don't. So we have people that kind of handle that kind of stuff. And then anything between. Some of our clients, we have one client that does their own payroll. We keep track of we overlook their books. So we just check in once a month and make sure they have a Ask My Accountant category, and they drop transactions in. They're like, is this tax deductible? Is this? And we just go through that. We spend an hour or two a month just reviewing a few transactions with them and making sure that all of their regulatory reports are filed on time. And, you know, so handling a little higher level, and they're saving a little money. But that wasn't the way they started. That particular client, we did everything. But as they grew, then there's a time that typically starts making sense for them. They bring in an assistant, and that assistant does like doing spreadsheets. And so that assistant, we then teach them, here's how you do payroll. So we pass off some of that. And now that assistant is doing more of that in-house, but we provide almost that outside view just to make sure that we can report back to the business owner, like, hey, this is what's going on. These are the reports. We validated, everything balances. There's no funny business. You know, you don't have $8,000 slipping out a week into this weird, obscure account. Or if it goes into a new account, we catch it and tell them what's going on and clarify, why are these transfers taking place? And like I said, all the way up to like full service, we handle all of it, the whole meal deal. There was some reporting requirements in the US for BOI reports. And that was something that we had hundreds of people called us just to say, I don't know what it is. What do we do? How do we handle it? And we charge them $100 or something to file this report. And then ultimately the report requirement went away in March, I think, of this year. The only reporting requirement for BOI is for foreign companies doing business in the US. So if there's a Canadian company that's registered to do business and does business in the US, they would have to report, but all of The US based companies no longer have that requirement. But there's different things like interstate commerce. And if you have employees in different states, and if you're moving across different state lines, there could be different things that affect you. So it's just kind of an ad. Yeah. It's kind of a la carte, or that's kind of what we're looking for, where if you need a little bit of this and that, we can help with things. My focus primarily is coaching, just because that's what I love. I love taking my experience and my background and just getting the shit kicked out of me, honestly, for a lot of years, and saying, there's a better way. I don't have all the answers, but I got a bunch of answers that you can really deploy and execute today that'll save you a lot of headache, hassle, trauma, and then you reach a certain point and you're probably going to need a new level of, we mentioned this earlier, new levels, new devils. You've got, when you get to 5, 7, 10, 12 million, you may need to bring in some higher level in-house, like COOs, different things, but you got to get ready for that. You got to go up the ladder and
don't just put the ad out on LinkedIn and hope for the best. You better be prepared.
No, that's a problem, Mark, that entrepreneurs. So one of our playbooks is how to hire an attorney or an accountant or other professionals, because again, we put lipstick on pigs. That we wake up to solve a problem. And I think that's cool. That's what makes entrepreneurs different and special. But when you're hiring an attorney, and I did this in my case that I started, for the first 7 months, I was working with the wrong attorney. It was bleeding me of cash. My position was getting weaker and weaker as time went by. But I met with one attorney. I had one phone call, and I was like, sure, this guy's going to be great. He's awesome. And he wasn't awesome. And so I, again, getting my butt kicked through this process, figured out how to go about bringing multiple people in. And so the short version of how to bring in a professional is you get on the phone with 10 of them in the same day. And this is important. The sequence is important. The timing is important. Talk to 10 attorneys in one day. You will know exactly who is the best person. That's when your entrepreneurial spirit comes out and you're like, that motherfucker, I know he's my guy. I know she's going to crush it for us. The problem is we have that same thing that comes up from inside when we only talk to one. So we have no comparison to make. We have nothing to put that against. And that is a bad formula for entrepreneurs.
I always recommend that when I have guests on here that are either part of some type of software company, and we're discussing the product that's coming out. And I always say, go do a demo, but then go do a demo with a couple others so that you at least have an idea, because it might work for one company. It might not work for your company. So it's super important. Justin, what would you say is one of the best advices you were ever given to from either a mentor or peer as you were growing your business?
Oh boy.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
No, that's a good question. I'm just there's so many things. More important than what you're in business to do is who you're in business with. And that's a key thing. If you've got good people, you're going to continue to kind of go up the ladder. Bad, you'll go down. You are the sum total of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. So if you guys are the boss out there, we were talking about this before too, you live in a little bit of a vacuum. So you have to level up and you have to be deliberate about who you're spending time with. And sometimes that means, hiring consultants and people that are further along that journey than you, or go getting in rooms and going to conferences and things like those things are critical, because as human beings, we just have this, it's something that doesn't become a habit, right, Mark? Like, we create habits in every part of our life, but we don't create the habit to climb. You really have to maintain persistence and keep it at the forefront of your mind to keep growing. That never becomes automatic, I feel. So those are some of the most important things, I think, because if you do that,
I totally agree.
Those are kind of like fail-safe mechanisms, so that no matter what happens, because entrepreneurism is a shit show. You are going to run into the unforeseen for sure. So if you're following a few of those keystone things, then you know that at least you're going up, at least you're around the right people, at least you keep taking steps up. That's how you can keep growing and improving.
How do those that are watching and listening reach you?
Right. The best way is Instagram. I think we're on all the major social platforms, but at It's Justin Lund, the same username, same handle across all of them, TikTok, Instagram. Yeah, I'd love to have you come over and check it out and see if there's anything that can help you with what you're dealing with. We put out content every day to try to solve some problems.
Well, this has been great, Justin. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
I joked with them in the beginning. I said, look, I usually always have some type of idea of questions, and you might get asked 2 of them. I think we maybe asked 1 of them. So this is exactly how I love the podcast to go, because it's like having a conversation. I tell people all the time, I'm like, if you're going to go meet up for coffee with someone, you might as well record it and film it and make it into a podcast, because most of that information is probably interesting for some, and even better to re-watch and relearn, because sometimes you just have conversations with others and then you walk away and the next day you go, oh man, I wish I remembered what Justin said to me. And so it's so vital.
Hi, I'm Mark Hirschi with Salmon's Moving and Storage. Today, I want to talk about Tighten Up training. Why? Because this is Netflix grade quality training. It's not those old videos and VHSs that you got hiding in your office somewhere. It's online, it's easy to use, they're short videos, but they get to the point. My new employees, these guys run through these training programs, there's tests at the end, and they're coming out going, oh, I'm ready to rock. So if you haven't checked out Tighten Up training yet, get a demo done, get on board. Guess what else is there? Online portals for my sales staff. Can you believe it? These guys can learn how to overcome objections and book more leads today. So what are you waiting for? Go check out Tighten Up training today.
That's a great point. And now feed it into ChatGPT 5.0 and make yourself a checklist out of it. Right?
Perfect. Done. Yeah, it's great. It's perfect. This has been great, Justin. Again, check them out. We'll have the links in the description. And until next time, everybody, stay Movified. Thank you so much, Justin.
Thanks, Mark.